Forced to be a parent at 14? Dr. Phil is lost for words. Sometimes these titles can feel like clickbait due to how bizarre they sound. But Dr. Phil's show tackles some of the most unheard of family dramas that may seem scripted because these people are too oblivious to be real. If it's not an unruly teen causing havoc to the family, best believe it's the parents not playing their part. Mostly the guests on the spotlight are going towards a downward spiral that only Dr. Phil can revert. Without wasting any more time, here are 4 of those family dramas from the Dr. Phil show, including a 14-year-old that was forced to be a parent. Number 4, my manipulative, raging son can't stop lying and refuses to go to school. Linda and Chuck say that their 17-year-old son Mike refuses to take no for an answer. They say he refuses to follow their rules, go to school, or grow up. Linda and Chuck claim they've done everything possible to discipline their son, but nothing seems to work. Mike says he's not the one who needs the help. In fact, he says his own mother is the one who needs to be smacked in the face with reality. Dr. Phil tries to get to the bottom of things to find out if Mike is an out-of-control teen or if his mother knows exactly how to push his buttons. My son Michael is 17 and he's gone off the rails, says Linda. She says the teen refuses to go to school, lies about everything, smokes marijuana, and got suspended for getting caught with a vape pen.
My son Michael is 17 and he has gone off the rails. Michael refuses to go to school, lies about everything, where he's going, who he's with, about the color of the sky.
She agrees that before this sudden switch, Michael once was a kind, sweet, and loving boy. Now she's scared of the person he's become, and one of her greatest fears is that Mike is going to follow through with his threats when he's angry and could possibly harm or even kill someone. Mike, on the other hand, calls his mom crazy, overbearing, and a helicopter parent. He claims she always assumes things about him and his behavior, and will never hear him out.
I just hate when my mom assumes things and doesn't let me explain. She just assumes before I can explain.
He says that to get his parents' attention, he started lying to them. He also admits to yelling and raging. He agrees that manipulation is the only way to get their attention because he's fed up with all the assumptions they make about him. This young man seemed to be going through so much. He speaks about the pain he goes through and how alcohol and weed have helped him numb the pain. Dr. Phil discovers Mike's friend was being bullied and he committed suicide because of that.
My mom wasn't hearing me out. I was going through a lot. My friend just had committed suicide, so
On the day of his death, Mike got very violent with his mother since he didn't understand how to deal with his emotions. Mike further explains that he'd never physically abused his mother, let alone any woman. As Mike explains how he felt when he was told that he'd been adopted, memories of abuse from his real parents started haunting him and all the trauma reflected in his teenage life. I think you have an internal dialogue that's very scary, Dr. Phil says to Mike. I think you say very scary things to yourself, and I think you have anxiety because you represent the world to yourself in a really scary way. Dr. Phil explains what underlying emotions manifest as rage and anger, and he offers Mike an opportunity to reset his life, which he gladly accepts. Number 3, we think our mother and her husband are being duped by her online boyfriend. Well, cases of people getting duped online aren't rare. But when a couple is being scammed by the same person, things start to get serious. Marcy and Todd say their 71-year-old mother Renee is completely absorbed in her relationship with online scammer Thomas Nunez Hughes, to whom she's given hundreds of thousands of dollars. Despite still being married to their stepfather Harold for over 35 years, she's proceeded with this affair blindly and even claims to be in love with Thomas the scammer. Her husband, however, is also in on it. I mean, his wife promised him $500,000 and a truck. Who'd pass on such an offer? Despite all the possible red flags, Renee says her children live in another state and don't have the first clue about her relationship with Thomas or Tom Nunez Hughes, who is handsome and wealthy, but unfortunately is stuck in South Africa. Renee says her boyfriend is the most romantic man she's ever met, even more so than her husband, who she plans to divorce once Thomas Hughes returns to the US. Marcy and Todd say their mother's obsession has escalated to frightening proportions since she's lured their stepfather into believing this crazy idea. They have a partners in crime agreement. The relationship with this man she's never met has lasted for over 4 years, and Renee is still naive about the whole situation. This in return led to her relationship with her children to deteriorate, and her daughter Marcy disinvited her mother to her wedding because Renee is completely absorbed in her relationship with this catfish. And Todd says he's not spoken to his mother in 2 years because she only wants money from him to give to her online lover. They admit she spent thousands of dollars, and Renee believes Thomas would pay it all back and even more. Although Renee's children Todd and Marcy say they believe Tom is a catfish, Renee says she feels Tom is real. "I don't believe Tom is scamming me, because if somebody was scamming me, why would they call you 4 or 5 times a day," Renee says.
I don't believe Tom is scamming me, because if somebody was scamming me, why would they call you 4 or 5 times a day?
"One day he's going to come riding up in a white carriage with horses and we're going to go away together."
One day he's gonna come riding up in a white carriage with horses, and we're gonna go away together.
She claims he's stuck in South Africa and has a string of bad luck. He's been robbed of $10,000. He's lived in the street. He's got malaria from bedbugs. Slept in his car. "I'm trying to help Tom come home," Renee continues. Dr. Phil reviews a text message exchange between Renee and Tom, and turns out they were all copy-pasted texts and nothing was romantic about them. He also reveals some very essential yet shocking revelations about the so-called Thomas Nunez Hughes. It turns out there's no one named that in the area he claimed to live, and his home address was nothing but a dead end. His name was also linked to a couple of scam sites, with his profile photo pulling up dozens of other social profiles. To make matters worse, all the little details about his life, including his daughter, was also false, since the pictures he sent her were from other websites and were in no way related to him. Even the said photos of himself belonged to another tycoon man who had no idea his photo was being used to lure people. At this point, you could tell how flushed Renee was. After investing all her time and emotions into this fantasy relationship, all she had to do now was accept the harsh reality and move on with her life as a broke 71-year-old woman. Number 2, family accused of locking their children in cages. Teresa claims her daughter Kyla texted her pictures showing 2 of Kyla's 5 children locked inside wooden enclosures surrounding their cribs in Kyla's grandparents' home, where they lived. Teresa says she reported the photos to the Department of Health and Human Services, which resulted in an investigation. The children were removed from the home the same evening, and the adults, who were their great-grandparents, arrested. Kyla doesn't sound like a serious mother since she lacks family planning intelligence. Dr. Phil is shocked to discover that she was expecting another baby even after losing custody of her 4.
How many children does she have altogether?
She has a total of 5 children, and she is pregnant with her 6th.
According to Teresa, the great-grandparents are deceitful and hope to find a way to get custody of her grandchildren. Dr. Phil is puzzled as to how one could live with themselves watching their children getting mistreated in such a manner. Kyla and her grandparents were charged with aggravated child abuse and reckless endangerment, and according to Teresa, she was informed that her daughter was put under suicide watch. Their grandson, however, defends his grandparents and calls them kind people who've done nothing but care for the kids as their mother neglected them. He also claimed that the cribs were built to lock like cages only for safety purposes, as they were getting overwhelmed with caring for 5 children and didn't want them to be falling out of their cribs as they got distracted with the rest. According to him, his sister only wanted to create a twisted story in order to send her grandparents to jail so she could claim custody of her children. As logical as it may sound, what was the purpose of the locks? Dr. Phil is shocked at how the men in the family are delusional about the whole situation as they try to justify why the kids were put in cages. One even claimed the kids ran off to the streets and Dr. Phil called them out immediately because everything just wasn't making sense. No child should go through such trauma, and this was a poor judgment call on their end. Number 1, forced at 14 to be a parent to my out-of-control brothers. When Ariana's father passed away, her mother Jody checked out completely as a parent and started dating and going out, leaving her to raise her destructive and violent 9 and 12-year-old brothers. Jody claims her sons are angry and destructive with severe behavioral issues. She wrote to Dr. Phil in a bid to get help, but he discovers her daughter Ariana had already written into the show over 22 times seeking help since she was subjected to play mom to her 2 younger brothers. She's not been able to fully live her life and has to constantly step in, or else her siblings would be left stranded without any food or someone to look after them, since their mother is occupied with her boyfriends and going out. Her mother, on the other hand, claims she's had a hard time grieving the death of her husband, hence the sudden changes. Ariana says she's constantly overwhelmed. Instead of worrying about college in general, I'm worried about how my brothers are.
I am stressed out. Instead of worrying about college in general, I'm worrying about how my brothers are.
When asked by Dr. Phil why she does what she does, she says, "I keep doing it because it's all I know." She also opens up that she wouldn't want her mother to hate her. As a source of comfort, she's turned to food. According to Ariana, she feels like her mother needs a wake-up call because things are getting out of hand. Her brothers have been suspended from school due to their extreme behavior and often have been called out for threatening other kids and picking fights. They also get regular weapon checks every time they enter the school, since they've even threatened to attack the place. Apart from drawing weapons and sending out threats, one of the boys drowned Ariana's chihuahua in the pool, something that hurts her to this day. According to Jody, it might be genetics or her parenting skills, but Dr. Phil strongly believes all of this is as a result of her neglect. She admits that she puts a lot of pressure on her daughter to care for her boys, since she's her only support. To help this dysfunctional family, Dr. Phil brings in Dr. Charles Sophie to shed a light on possible solutions. What do you think about the mom? Is her depression even justified?